So the House of Commons has risen for the summer. And I think there's a general impression that the Liberals didn't achieve much in this last session of Parliament. But I beg to differ. I think with the help of their little lapdog friends in the NDP, the Liberals achieved quite a lot. All of it bad. For instance, they got their budget through. What's wrong with that? Don't governments get to put their budgets through? Well, this budget contains almost $500 billion in spending. Remember when we used to have to say B as in billion because we didn't want to confuse with million? Well, now we're going to have to start saying T as in trillion to not confuse it with billion. It has $500 billion worth of spending in it. That's bad in and of itself. And so I think that's an achievement they shouldn't be very proud of. Since the Liberals came to power in 2015, they've increased the size of federal spending by 55% during a time when the population of the country has increased about 20%. So they've increased the federal government enormously. So I think that's a bad achievement in this parliamentary term. They've also been able to get their online streaming bill passed, which will heavily control what Google and others can show you in the news in return for money that will go to Canadian broadcasters and Canadian publishers. In and of itself, that's not all bad, but it has to go through government. So the money will come from Google, from Facebook, from Twitter, and from Instagram and others like that to the federal government, who will then decide who gets a share of it. That is bad. There's also been the gun ban. Now, the gun ban hasn't passed the Senate yet. The Senate is still sitting, so there's a possibility that it will not pass before the summer recess for the upper house. But the gun ban is a terrible bill. It basically outlaws hundreds of thousands of guns owned by legal gun-owning Canadians, people who don't harm anyone, who hunt or trap shoot or target shoot for fun. The Liberals, though, in their quest to prove that they're tough on crime, which they are not, in their quest to prove they're tough on crime, are going to take away a lot more guns from law-abiding Canadian gun owners. Another bad thing they did this term. And the other bad thing they did was they passed Bill C-13, which makes it much more difficult for unilingual Anglophones to get jobs in federally regulated industries, not just in the federal government, but in banks and in airlines and in other sorts of industries that are regulated by federal jurisdiction, that are part of the federal government's regulatory regime. And it's made it impossible for anyone to sit on the Supreme Court of Canada unless they're bilingual. No more simultaneous translation available. You must be fully bilingual to get on the Supreme Court. That's a very small part of the population. So now you're talking about Laurentian elites who are running everything in the country, and they are also now the only people who can sit on the Supreme Court of Canada. So, you may think there wasn't much going on. There was the Chinese interference scandal that overshadowed nearly everything Parliament was doing. But I would say if you dig down deep enough, what Parliament did in the previous session was bad. For Postmedia, I'm Lorne Gunter.